Good evening and welcome to 13 News Now at 5. I'm David Allen.
And I'm Janet Roach. First tonight, our temperatures at least made a run at a record today.
It's February, but it felt more like May with the temperatures more than 25 degrees above normal. Jeff Lawson is in the weather lab for us. And Jeff, we got pretty close to a record, no?
And we conceivably may have gotten a record tying temperature, maybe even set a record. We won't find out officially until about 5:30. You can see the clear skies out there. So for this afternoon, the record 79 in 2014. So far, every hour on the hour, the highest we made was 77. They did report earlier at one point when the highest we'd ever seen on the hour was 75, that we had made it up to 77 between hours. They won't tell us again where we got to between the hours until we get to the 5:30 time frame. So nil asterisk by that. I believe we probably got at least to 78, and I wouldn't rule out maybe we even got to 79. I think it's unlikely that we broke the record of 80, but you know, we'll just wait and see. Sometimes we do have a couple degree rise in between hours. Right now, 77 still. That's our high for the day. Winds out of the southwest, 14 miles per hour. It's fairly humid out there, really humid for this time of year, and that would even be a little bit humid for early May, which is what those temperatures out there feel like right now. For the next 12 hours, dropping then from the 70s back into the 60s, but even by morning, we only get down into the lower 60s. You can see we keep some partly cloudy to mostly cloudy skies out there at times. I think we'll see some fog around again, but not in a ton of spots. We'll talk more about that. And when this breaks, this warm pattern, that's all coming up.
Tonight, the world is remembering one of the most famous Christian evangelists. Billy Graham has passed away.
He was 99 years old. Graham leaves quite a legacy around the world. He also made his mark in our area, including at Regent University.
And that's where 13 News Now reporter Jacqueline Lee is live tonight. And Jacqueline, you spoke with the staff about Graham's impact.
That's right, Janet. I spoke with deans from both the School of Government and the Divinity School here at Regent University. Both of them said that Graham's influence extended all over the world, whether it was with U.S. presidents and global leaders or just average people. His words echoed around the world. Reverend Billy Graham, considered one of the most influential evangelists in history.
Grateful for the life that he lived. Right, and grateful for the example that he leaves.
Cornelius Becker, Dean of Regent University's Divinity School, said Graham was influential because of the simplicity in his messages.
Billy Graham was a man that had a clear understanding of the power of the gospel of Jesus Christ.
And that clear understanding led Graham to preach to more than 100 million people in 185 countries over the span of 6 decades, including U.S. presidents from Harry Truman all the way to Barack Obama.
What he did was he ministered to people on the left, he ministered to people on the right. He was respected on both sides.
Dr. Eric Patterson with Regent University's School of Government said while Graham sat with some of the most powerful people in the world, he didn't actually influence politics.
Here's a man that starting in the early 1950s was available at any time to presidents to pray with them, to pray for them, to pray for wisdom and things.
And one of his closest friends, chairman of the Christian Broadcasting Network and CEO of Regent University, Pat Robertson, said this on television earlier this morning.
He will be sadly missed. That there was no leader of American evangelical Christianity that could come close to Billy Graham in stature.
And Graham is still influencing a whole generation. Coming up on 13 News Now at 6, I'll tell you how one Divinity School student wants to follow in his footsteps. Live in Virginia Beach, Jacqueline Lee, 13 News Now.
Online, we're seeing tributes come in for Graham. President Trump tweeted that Graham will be missed by Christians and all religions. Former President Obama also tweeted saying Graham gave hope and guidance to generations of Americans. And TV evangelist T.D. Jakes also went online to honor Graham, saying today we lost a general in the kingdom of God and that Graham has earned his rest. To see more of the posts honoring Graham, look for this story on 13newsnow.com.
New tonight, a united front from many local school divisions. Superintendents from more than a half dozen school systems issued a joint letter today about the efforts to keep schools safe. They also tackled the recent rash of threats at area schools. The letter says in part, as superintendents of the region, we are joining together with local police agencies to address disturbing social media posts or comments made that could be perceived as a threat. Any threat made against any one of our schools, even those made as a joke, will have serious repercussions, including potential criminal charges and a possible recommendation for expulsion from school. That letter comes as a 7th grade student in Norfolk became the latest child to be charged with making threats in the past week. That child made a threat against J. Cox Elementary School. Around the area, at least 6 other students have been charged. With the threats, police are trying to remind children that making threats can have very serious consequences, including jail time and hefty fines. Our legal analyst says any convictions that have the potential to follow a child here in this case will follow them possibly into adulthood.
A Class 6 felony carries up to 5 years in prison, and a Class 5 carries up to 10. They could not have a firearm in the future. It will make it very difficult for them to get jobs.
A child charged with making a threat could also be held in juvenile detention while they wait a court date to hear the case.
Now to a developing story. We're tracking the effort to find a solution for Huntington Middle School in Newport News. The school division wants to replace the building, which is falling apart. But there are big questions about where students will go in the meantime. 13 News Now reporter Nico Clemens is live in Newport News. And Nico, what's the latest from the school board?
Well, Janet, the school board is considering this one proposal that's got parents and grandparents talking. The acting superintendent is proposing sending Huntington students to other schools next year, including one nearby high school.
Pride, the community, is the only thing we have left.
Terry Dunlap knows Huntington Middle School has been around for a while.
Before I was born.
She was born and raised in Newport News. Now her son goes to Huntington, a school she says is due for a facelift.
I'd like to see it replaced.
The school board is still trying to figure out what to do with the building and the students. Last night, the acting superintendent presented a recommendation on what he believes they should do moving forward.
Fix it up. I don't think they should tear it down. I think they should fix it up.
The recommendation includes sending current 5th graders zoned for Huntington to Hines and Crittenton middle schools next year. Current 6th and 7th grade Huntington students would stay together with their teachers in one wing at Heritage High School next year.
This place was not a place for learning.
School board chair Gary Hunter says that the acting superintendent took all the feedback they got from parents into consideration before presenting this proposal.
But I assure you that there will be 2 schools within one. They'll be in a completely different wing. All the security guards and things that sort, the principal moves, the counselor moves, the teachers moves. So it'll just be Huntington Middle School at Heritage location.
However, Dunlap isn't a big fan of moving kids to the high school.
They're not ready for it. There has to be other options.
And so there is a family meeting here at Huntington next Monday, the 26th at 6, where parents and students can come out and learn about this proposed plan. Then March 20th, there's a public hearing, and then the school board, they plan to vote on that recommended plan or proposal at their March 27th meeting. Live in Newport News, I'm Nico Clemens, 13 News Now.
And Newport News police are on the scene of a shooting right now. The call came in around 4:15 on Taylor Avenue near Terminal Avenue. Officers found someone who had been shot in the leg, and we're told the wound is life-threatening. Investigators are working to figure out what happened. We'll pass on any information that we learn.
After a winter filled with house fires, Hampton Roads fire departments are trying something new to try and prevent more disasters. They're calling for a safety stand-down this week. Tomorrow, they're asking everyone to take a few moments, look around their homes, and identify any fire hazards. Fire investigators say many of the fires were caused by heating equipment, cooking, or careless smoking, and could have been prevented.
A nasty discovery in a Virginia Beach apartment has animal control officers investigating. 4 large breed dogs, some living in feces, were seized from a unit off Queensway. This happened earlier in the month at the Emerald Point Apartments, but as our Stephen Graves explains, there are many more disturbing details. Stephen.
Behind these doors of a Virginia Beach apartment, investigators say they found a putrid scene. 4 big breed dogs in cages of a bedroom. Court records say some were living in feces, significantly underweight. Another had a fresh cut on a paw. According to a search warrant, that was just during the first visit to the 700 block of Queens Way. The unit at Emerald Point, the center of 2 more visits. On the last one, every dog and 3 cats were seized. 1 cat was later found dead when there was a cleaning crew here. Neighbor Jordan Johnson describes a constant struggle with the owner.
It's essentially the department, fined her a couple times, but it continued.
Johnson describes her letting the dogs roam freely on the sidewalk and road, constantly dealing with feces at his doorstep, even noises at night.
Mostly like dogs racing and running around the house.
The owner hasn't been charged yet, but investigators believe at the end of the day, these animals were neglected. The dogs at one point believed not to have had water for days.
And Stephen tells us that documents say this owner was in an interesting life situation. Animal control officers say there's a lesson to be learned for you at home, and we'll explain that to you in the next hour.